Hey guys, I'm Mr. Genie here, aka Mustached, here to review the movie Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel. And fourth to my Discord server. Any and all donations will be greatly appreciated. And you can do all the shilling on the Discord, and shilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, of course, I've seen the trailer for this pop up, obviously, quite a bit. And off of the precipice of Marvel being in quite the funk as of Phase 4, it was going to be quite an uphill battle, I would say, for this movie to be as effective as it could have been, or, be separated in its way of just being compared to, say, even just the previous Guardians of the Galaxy's movies, that being Volume 1 and 2. So, that is sort of the going-ons of the process of trying to get into the mindset of reviewing this movie as objectively as possible, while also starting to, just think about how it is as a trilogy, how it is by an independent film, how it is by a Marvel film. There are a lot of, segments that this movie has to sort of intersect with being at the same time. Anyway, so I suppose the best course of action is to dive in. So, with that being said, at this juncture, this will be a spoiler review, since it just came out. So, I will be detailing everything, so if you want to avoid that, then make sure to watch the movie if that is something you want to do, first and foremost. But if you really don't care about spoilers or have already seen it, then this will be where I can say, well, stick around, folks, because we got a lot to comb through in this review. So let's begin. So the movie starts out where we see a baby rocket raccoon. So this is sort of indicating our lead up into the movie, sort of us processing what type of movie we're going to be getting here, which is very Rocket Raccoon focused in, well, how that's going to go about being. Anyway, so as we are reconvening in the present time, we're currently with our crew on the planet called Nowhere. Now, I do want to emphasize that outside of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, that there is also a Christmas special that does allude to additional information, like Mantis being related to Star-Lord, aka Quill, and that's only revealed in the, as far as I know, Christmas special. I think that's where that was revealed, and I think they just sort of passed by that information relatively early here, just to get it out of the way, if I remember correctly. But everyone's sort of kind of going about their day, but Quill himself, Star-Lord, is not doing so hot, thinking about how he has lost Gamora in a significant way. This is, of course, in the process of dealing with everything of the Avengers and losing Gamora through the Thanos situation. So there's, again, this movie cannot escape that it's sort of a predecessor of the Guardians of Galaxy characters being outside of their own universe. They interact with other characters, so this is a consequence of that. So we sort of follow these two side characters. The ones on the furthest left here of the poster. This guy on the furthest left was in the previous two movies as sort of Yondu's side subordinate, and now he's sort of like just chill with the crew. And I just watched the movie and I already forgot his name. Is unfortunate. In his in-character name. So yeah, that's how memorable this character kind of is to me. He's sort of like, again, a very much a side character. I remember the dog's name. It's Cosmo. Anyways, so this guy, who I'll just, for the sake of this review, I'll just call him Mohawk. So Mohawk here is like practicing with the little needle thing that Yondu passed, or Quill, Star-Lord gave to him, if I remember. And so he's barely doing it, and Cosmo the dog comes in and shows that she possesses some high-octane telepathy and is able to hit all the targets. So this is where we're sort of having some cheeky little moments to help smooth us in, as it were, into this world of nowhere again. But we cut very briefly to a being flying presumably towards them, and indeed, that being that is indeed flying right towards them flies right into Rocket Raccoon, and then proceeds to get in a little scuffle with Nebula, then with Groot, and it goes on with the little Mohawk guy attempting to hit him with the needle thing, and then the needle dropping. So this foe is not affected by the needle, whereas other people have been fairly easily, so you're supposed to sort of gauge, like, this guy's, like, super powerful or whatever. Everyone's trying to get in on this. Rocket Raccoon is trying to rescuffle his way in. We got Mantis there again. Drax gets a little bit of a moment, but is eventually stabbed in the process a bit here. And Rocket Raccoon is just like suffering because of this guy. He's like sort of like really getting in on him, particularly. But Nebula stabs him in the back, and he seems to be off-put by it, like it was almost an inconvenience. And the crew sort of like do something, because it cuts away. And for the sake of this, I will say that the best parts of this movie in particular is the Rocket Raccoon, as we'll learn throughout the movie, flashbacks / character moment, and how that sort of leads into the end. However, the modern, present-day stuff, we're going to have to talk about some of that stuff as we proceed through this movie. But Rocket Raccoon, we see him actually being tested on. This was something that was alluded to in the very first movie and reinforced in the second movie, but now we're actually seeing snippets of it now. So yeah. And the other thing we know is that he's towed in with 3 other creatures that have been cybernetically enhanced, much like himself. We learn that the organization that has it is called the Orgel something group, Corp. And he's been infected. Rocket Raccoon has been infected by him, or was already infected, and now only has 48 hours left to live. Like, the kill switch has been enacted, and it allows him only remaining 48 hours to live, unless he is provided to the one who is seeking him out. The one who is seeking him out is, I believe he's called the High Evolutionary. I don't think they ever referred to him that in the movie, by the way. I don't recall. It was a long movie, and I do apologize if they do refer to him as this, but I don't remember it at all. This could be another case of me doing the whole Spider-Man Into the Universe thing, where I forgot, like, one of the antagonist names, and apparently the name was uttered, like, a bunch of times, and I just never caught it. It could be an instance of that, but I really don't know. But it is quite a long name, so I think I'll cut down the antagonist name to Theo, since that incorporates all letters that are present in that higher end name. And as they're getting ready for their process to go, because they're like trying to heal Rocket Raccoon, it's like making things worse, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta get to the people that are responsible so we can install this thing that's been implanted in him, that's only giving him 48 hours to live. And then they reuse a joke, and I'm not joking. I'm surprised that this didn't catch on. I think this is in one of the Thor movies where the ones where the Guardians of the Galaxy popped in at. It's the same joke between two characters, that being Quill and Drax, and it's the same joke where it's like, we're not gonna kill anybody, and then Drax is like, yeah, we're gonna kill a lot of people, and then it's like, no, we're not gonna kill anybody. It's like, oh, we'll kill one guy, the guy that, like, nobody loves or is gonna miss. They say the exact same joke from Thor that they're in, beat for beat, just faster. I'm not joking. This is lifted from their previous attempt, except the previous attempt was better, because the pacing in the original source of this was a bit slower, and a bit more, and from that pacing came that authenticity, whereas here, the pacing is increased, and therefore comes off as like they're doing a bit. And because it's coming off like they're doing a bit, it just doesn't come across as funny, as authentic as it possibly could be. And it almost comes across as almost even to the point of meta, of like they're just doing it because they're like, we do this all the time, or like whatever, I don't know. But we learn that Theo has, under his possession, or under him, we have Adam Warlock, and his mom underneath him, underneath the heels, and he's threatening to kill them if they don't get him back. So these higher end people are even feeling threatened. So this guy, the Theo guy, must be truly even bigger, badder, worse. No boy. So Quinn rebukes that he is tired of losing people, but his sister claims that he still has someone on Earth that he can go back to. So, but he's like, And this is during their travels to this place that they're trying to get to essentially sort of wrangle their way inside this area. So this is where things get a little bit wonky. wonkier anyways. So we're reintroduced to the Ravagers, a group that Quill Quill was, Star-Lord was associated getting into. Um, and they've had their issues in the past with, like, who's the top dog or whatever. And now all of a sudden one of them has sling ring material. Like, that's baffling. And yeah, they don't use it beyond just that moment. So, oops. Anyway, so we learn now that Nebula, who's no good, by the way, because, you know, even in the second movie, she's sort of like, because I rewatched the second movie in preparation in the first to get into this. Even in the second movie, she was like in between, so I know that might come all across as very like strange to jump into the third one to see that she is fully on the good guy's side now, perhaps. Where in the first one she clearly wasn't. And was in contact with Gamora, who is a different Gamora before the Guardians of the Galaxy movies even took place. And we'll get to her a lot in this. But Sylvester Stallone's character, whose name I also don't remember, he was in the second one, by the way, but he's here again, is in charge. He's like the upper guy in the Ravagers group, is essentially his position. It's like, I'm Dick George here. But we get a little bit more of that flashback where we learn that Rocket Raccoon was, even as a youngster, super smart, but he was always referred to as P-13. And as this little, he notes as he's talking with Theo here, a little rocket heading outside, and he's like, ooh, what's that? Is that a rocket? Or something along those lines. So he already has some sort of a fascination even at such a young age. So Theo shows him, in turn, this aging process that age-ups a turtle, but as it does so, it turns the creature inside hostile. And so he doesn't want that to be the process, so he burns their turtle, and that kind of freaks out P-13/Rocket here. And that's all we get for our little sequence here. Meanwhile, back in our current timeline, our group approaches the planet with their colored suits instead of the suits they had in the second movie, which was the ones that you can sort of see their skin still, that you could just like patch on. So, oops, forgetting technology in a third movie. That's not great, guys. Yeah, oof. Anyways, so Quinn tries to talk with Gamora one-on-one here. However, their comms are all mixed up in the colors, but Drax says it all makes sense, even though it really doesn't. And so they bumble their way inside, and Drax is like the last one in, but he gets stuck, so they have to pull him through. This sort of like skin surface. And by the way, they've already surpassed 3, barriers of like shields without them being detected by this place. So now they're in proper, just as these other people are checking out what's in this room. So they have to get rid of their spacesuits, so they toss them into the airlock. So yeah, even though the camera was turned off, the woman is like, something is still kind of suspicious. And then, for whatever reason, even though all of them brought all of their suits into this bin, Mantis is the one that is being pointed at because she was the one who sort of spotted it. But she gets all the flack even though there's nothing else in the room, and that seemed like their only option, kind of, pretty much. So, kind of unnecessary, like, what are you doing here, movie? What are you trying to get us to do here? Feels like we're like, scapegoating a victim here. Like, what the fuck? And Mantis. It's like, what are you doing? So they have to essentially fake out their way out of this situation. And at any moment, Mantis, despite being victim blame, could, use her abilities at any point in this juncture to touch any of these lads and be like, hey, you can guide us through this area. And that would probably even give them even better clearance, but no. Instead, they're going to split up their party into smaller groups. We're going to have Drax and Mantis head down for whatever reason. We're going to have Quinn head with Gamora, which I'm pretty sure they do for more purposes of like trying to expose this whole relationship or non-relationship in this movie, in this case, is the only reason why these two get paired in the first place. Is like, okay, so you're doing this meta thing again. Can you stop doing that, please, movie? You'd go about this a little bit smarter. But no, here we are, where Mantis isn't using her powers to the best of her abilities. We have people being separated into groups that are just so convenient or inconvenient, depending on which way you're looking at it. Because it just so happens that Quinn and Gamora get into a situation where they have to convince somebody to let them use their machines, and if Mantis was with them, she could have used her powers. But no, Mantis is with Drax. And furthermore, Gamora is with the Ravagers. Just if that wasn't made clear before, she came with them. She's a part of their group now. So this comes across as confusing. So, okay. So this is a Gamora, and maybe my timeline is fucked in the brain. So this is a Gamora that was with Thanos up until a point, but she didn't join the but this one didn't join the Guardians, right? Because there seems to be implications that that's not the case, though. Like, wouldn't she have been taken from the point after, up until she disappeared? Like, isn't that how that would work? Like, why would it be before? That doesn't make any sense. Like, this whole Gamora situation is fucked. Don't get me wrong. It is just terrible how this situation had to occur. Like, why did they make her vanish and then, do whatever? And, have her killed on top of vanishing and all that stuff. It's like, okay, so you have to take a Gamora that is pre that, but post Thanos. So it's like in between a thing that you cannot see, and that is like a big issue. It's like, so you actually don't know who this character is then, right? Except that she is related to Nebula still, obviously, and Thanos, obviously, but not to the Guardians of the Galaxy. But you would think the core of her character from those movies would stick to a degree, right? Like, again, rewatching these movies, it came across to me as though Gamora was always the one guiding the others closer to this sort of heroic sense of doing what's right, because she felt under the thumb of Thanos for so long, and then once she had that opportunity to do so, being with the Guardians and then gaining the access to one of the Infinity Stones, she took full advantage of that opportunity. But now, since this is a gap before apparently Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but not any events that we are currently seeing, quote unquote, now she's abruptly a Ravager. It's like, would she really join the Ravagers? And it's like, I don't know, I don't think so, based on the information we know about her from 1 and 2, but again, it's apparently from not 1 or 2, so it's like, well, again, it's like, you essentially did create a new character, right? It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, what did the rest of Marvel do to you, Gamora? I'm sorry, but they really fucked that character. Because Nebula got a very similar treatment, by the way, just prior to this. But it's worse for Gamora here now. So it's like, oh my god, why do these two get such undertreatment? It's like, come on. Anyway. So yeah, Gamora's all in favor of just holding up a gun and not even letting attempt Quinn from getting his charm across or any of that stuff. All the while that's going on, we have a weird moment where she points out that Quinn, would be much more in line with Nebula, according to her. And then all of a sudden, Quinn just sort of goes, "You do have nice eyes." And it's like, Quinn, what are you doing? And then she's like, I got those torture from Thanos. And he's like, yeah, he picked it good. It's like, Quinn, what are you doing? Stop. Just stop, man. You don't know what you're messing with. So another awful moment, just like, what is going on, movie? All the while, Drax and Mantis, or Drax is getting ready to a fight, because those two are being alerted to rather quickly, because the guards know that we're arriving, so they didn't prep in any other fashion other than to just now have that be the case. Mind you that Mantis claimed to want to flee, and Drax was the one who wanted to claim to want to fight. And then later on, having Mantis have a guy blast a bunch of people, yeah, how's that going for just wanting to flee, Mantis? Your character broken yet? Okay, fine. I guess we're just just wibbly wobbly character wobble blah 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 blah. That's another one. Just throw them out. So that's two characters fucked with. Bye. See ya. Gone. So then, Quinn makes his heartfelt speech because he gains access to the terminal because he does get his charm through after all, I guess. While Gamora is just kind of just there for a bit, and he then explains as soon as he gains access that he's actually just there to mess with them, and makes all the guards float, and then walks away, in which the woman can promptly sit back down and make that not the case, but that's not the case. Anyway, we cut to our next flashback, where we're back with our animal crew in the best part of the movie. And we're there with our four animals, that being a otter with mechanical arms, walrus, with like a lower end of like mechanical things, and like a rabbit with like a mouthpiece, and then also like legs that are like mechanically inclined. And this is also where they name themselves. We have Lila being the otter, we have Teeths in the walrus, and we have Floor the rabbit because she's on the floor a lot. And Rocket, obviously, because he spotted and had a fascination with Rocket prior. So that's all nifty and cool and heartfelt. So yeah, we cut back, and during their little debacle, the two sisters almost get in each other's way again here. Or, actually Gamora, being so pissed that Quinn is not stopping, she attempts to attack Quinn, and Nebula stops her. Sorry, that's how it goes. All the while, we cut back to Warlock. Adam Warlock. He's finally back in the movie, you see. And he's still wanting to kill them. And the mom and him trick Gamora, because she's just like... Oh wait, hold on. I think I cut out my notes here a little bit. Because, like, the attack happens, and then, like, I think they, like, leave, and then, they're, like, back on the ship after the fact, I think, is what's happening here, so I do apologize if I missed anything in my notes here, but nonetheless, Warlock is, like, and the mom is like, oh, we need their position. So Gamora gives them their positioning, somehow assuming that this is a Ravager. It's like, okay, so now you made her position even worse somehow. So, according to your logic, movie, or the writers, you wanted me to believe that she was part of the Ravagers, but now you're telling me is that she just hears a voice and goes, that's a Ravager. It's like, then which is it? Does she know the Ravagers, or did she not did she just join them out of some need to fulfill some space in her life that is like, again, the small snippet of her character that we don't see? It's like, it's broken to a degree. There is no denying this. It's like, so she doesn't know her crew that well then. Huh? How long was she with them then? Like, this opens up a whole new floodgate of questions of like, whoa, what is Gamora's deal here? again. It's like, okay. So yeah, she doesn't recognize the voice. Fantastic. And that doesn't gain her any sus. But Quinn is not so happy as they're approaching this animal planet soon. But Mantis is the one pushing this forward on Drax to have a talk with Quinn about his positioning and his pushing about this whole relationship ordeal that he's going through. Drax offers up some pretty okay advice, all things considered. But Rocket Raccoon is still suffering, though, so we gotta put that back on the forefront. We gotta remind the audience that that's the case here. And we get more of a flashback here, as we get Theo talking and getting more angry that Rocket Raccoon was the one to figure out this sort of situation with the whole animals going mad thing. And once this whole situation is that Theo essentially wants his brain specifically, because his brain was able to figure out this high advanced thing that he can't figure out. Even though he was the one who brought Rocket Raccoon into this world in this way. So, pretty sadistic stuff, but according to Theo, it's all about making the perfect world. So, pretty interesting, pretty typical villain here. I would say, actually, I would err on the side of actually pretty good in terms of, like, a villain who perceives that he's doing good, but is actually doing some really, like, some of the darkest shit you can probably do, and to animals on top of that also have, these complex, more advanced feelings on top of being animals. So it's like, oh, you're doubling down on actually the, using animals as this emotional toll here. It's like, no, it's more than that, actually. It's like, these creatures also have intelligence. Let's not forget that, people. Like, further intelligence and, like, the capacity to talk and feel and all of these additional things. Not that animals can't feel, it's not what I'm saying, it's just like, they've been manipulated to be quote-unquote smarter, so there's, like, this more, like, there's, like, an even deeper connection is all I'm trying to get at here. Anyway, all the while, they finally land on Animal Planet, Earth 2, with animals, as it looks to be. And Drax almost ruins their landing by throwing a dodgeball at a little girl who, like, sort of daintily tossed it, and you saw that in all the trailers, by the way. So all the people are, like, mad, and they're, like, trying to just gain access to, like, where they can go from here. Because they're trying to find the main base at this point, and it just happens to be on this planet. So they eventually get invited into this family home. This one family that speaks a different language, by the way. Never translated, but they seem to get the information across just fine, I guess. Both sides, by the way. So yeah. Rocket's still struggling. We have Gamora chilling on the ship. She's like looking around, kind of bored. And then we hear Theo, and yeah, he says that he knows that they're coming at this point in time. That being Quinn and some of the others as they leave the house in the car eventually. So Quinn goes on with Groot, and I believe Nebula is the other one that heads with them, while the others stay behind. And we get another flashback where Rocket Raccoon begins to build his first device, which essentially allows him to help Lila escape alongside the other two, being Tease and Floor. However, Theo comes in knowing that that Rocket was going to attempt to do this eventually, and just so happened to do so now, of all times. And Rocket gets blasted towards, but not at, directly, and as Rocket attacks and then proceeds to turn around, he sees that all of his friends that he's been with for, I'm assuming now, a few years, because it shows him like a little bit bigger here, but not by a significant degree. Probably been like even a few days or months, possibly. I'm not sure what the full timeline of this flashback is, but it's all really interesting stuff. Like, again, that's part of the movie easily. And so, in a fury, he proceeds to kill and gun down. Leela is shot down first, and then the other two are shot down as he proceeds to, like, go into a rage, and then he sees, like, the other two have been killed in the process of him doing that. So, it was it definitely comes across as, like, the other two movies, now that this guilt has been riding with him all this time. So yeah, he manages to fly out of there and escape. And again, Theo doubles down on trying to create this perfect, quote-unquote, perfect universe. All the while, Gamora, while she's on the ship, gets attacked by a pig robot and fights back. And Warlock just sort of marching in tackles the pig one, although I would assume he was trying to aim for Gamora, but it kind of looks like he's aiming for the pig, and then hits it and kills it too, by the way. But Gamora grabs Rocket and gets out of there. And since Theo is done with this planet, he sees no further use of it, he's like, let it blow up. And everyone's like, holy shit, this guy's actually, this guy's really fucked up. Like, Jesus Christ. And so, yes, I think this is how it's put, because you just start to see creatures, like, blow up, so I'm assuming, like, the thing that's in Rocket Raccoon has been installed in all of them, except for all of them, specifically, it was to just blow up whenever he was done testing on this planet. And so, yeah, the entire planet begins to blow up from all of them blowing up in this process. So Drax and Mantis were on their way, and they get all the way to Nebula, who's already at the main base. All the while, Groot is already in, as I already mentioned. And this is where you see another shot from the trailer where Groot and Quinn have a moment where they're, like, shooting at a bunch of people here. Shooting at all the people in this little base. And Quinn tackles this man that they have been after, who has the chip to gain them the info to release Rocket from his inner core 48 hours of time left. But Groot jumps in after them and grows wings, which is a new ability that he has in this movie, because that's not something I saw in the previous two movies. So, yeah, that's neat, I guess. Not sure how that fully delves into the plant aspect of him. I don't know. It feels a bit weird, but okay. I don't know how I feel about that power, specifically for Groot. It feels like very not plant-based again, I don't know. Anyway. So the ship goes over, and Quinn and Groot are trying to get in. All the while, Drax, Mantis, and Nebula drop in, and they get a little access pass inside the base, and they find what appear to be human children. They're not human, they're like some other group. But they're all children. It's like, oh my god, this... You think it would just end with the animals. No! It goes beyond. He was ready to proceed, transfer all the stuff from the animals to the humans here. That's what his whole ideal is, trying to get closer to humans than creatures, is sort of a part of his whole shtick here. Meanwhile, instead of a flashback, we get sort of like a Rocket is sort of like in heaven sort of moment, or like is blurring between that and seeing Lila. And he's ready to pass at this point, but Leela, again, I forget which way it's pronounced, but she essentially says, your time is not quite yet, you need to go back, you still have a job to do. So she stops him from essentially a passing over. It's obviously something that's been done quite a bit of times throughout various stories where this sort of thing happens, where it's like, it's not your time yet. All the while, Nebula gets knocked out by Theo. While all this is going on, by the way, we cut away to our side characters. We have Cosmo the dog and various others playing some card game. And we have another Howard the Duck cameo, I believe his name is. So, we know what Theo wants, and it's fucked up. And to, transfer the brain into the kids. All the while, Nebula and Mantis are trying to help these kids out, and they're making things worse because they're yelling at each other and at the kids. And Drax is able to actually connect with kids, considering he is already a father, or was a father. This is actually, I think, one of Drax's better moments in this entire movie, quite frankly, because he had like a near-death, or pretty much almost confirmed death, but not death, during their escapades in the whole sequence in their escape of that facility. Because, yes, by the way, Drax gets shot like twice, and it's like played off like he's gonna die here. But I feel like the only reason they keep him alive is for this moment. And yeah, this moment is nice. But, it is certainly like, they keep doing this to these characters. It's like, okay, I'm gonna stop believing you now. And of course, Raccoon's whole death is like the whole crux of the movie, so that one's like taking up the largest chunk of like, is it gonna live, is it gonna die? It's taking up the biggest chunk, and then we have Quinn on top of those two, being like, oh, we're gonna do his again, because we didn't get enough of that prior, by the way, that has happened before. So yeah, all the while, Mohawk, because we're not done with our side characters, is like trying to connect with the ships and stuff like that. And yeah, he's like making contacts and all that cool stuff in the background there. But meanwhile, Theo unleashes more of these monsters. We saw these in part 2 at the beginning. By the way, it's the same creature design. I'm suspecting these are the same thing. But we see that Warlock has woken up from his like power nap or whatever he was doing, because he left out of the movie last time doing that, I guess. Yeah, Nebula, Mantis, and Drax are getting threatened by the monsters, but Mantis is able to use her emotional connection to connect to these creatures as well. So now she's finally using her abilities to a better place now that she can actually use them, because she was only using it on the one person, like one-on-one, and then she was ruined, and now she's going back to being like, oh, so now she's doing good stuff again, okay. Anyway, so Gamora and Quinn manage to avoid making contact with Warlock, obviously. All the while, Mantis uses her ability and is walking towards the creatures, telling them, like, calm down, we're not gonna harm you, all that good stuff. All the while, Mohawk focuses on his power, because he was unable to do it before, very smoothly anyway, and is able to do it more effectively here. And even sees a little cameo by our Yondu here. And just as things are about to look gloomy for our side characters, Cosmo, excuse me, after being called a bad dog for the beginning portion by him at the beginning of the movie, and he never lets up on it every time we see him, it's only after their lives are threatened by this entity that's attacking them, and he finally refers to her as he excuse me again, and finally ends with some good old dog kisses. Anyway, or snuggles, or whatever you want to refer to that as, when a dog, like, snuggles, like, licks you. I guess it's like a dog smooch equivalent, I don't know. Anyway. So, yeah. So, Theo's people around him aren't oh man, this is like, ugh. Just like, my nose is like all black now. Excuse me. Ugh. Excuse me. So Theo, there we go, is all like, oh, so I'm still gonna get my way, and his people aren't so keen on that anymore, so they're starting to turn their guns on him. They're like, nah, we're in a little insurrection here, fuck this. But he's not happy with any of this, and he power surges out once again, showing that he has a massive actual amount of power behind him. So Mantis joins the rest of the crew, that being Quinn, Groot, and Nebula, just as they were just about to save them, so they convened at just the proper time just before then. And yes, they have already treated Rocket at this point, by the way. I forget where this happens in the movie. It's essentially when it comes after the resurrection part, is sort of in line with that. Sorry, and I just sort of blanked. Yeah, because Rocket Raccoon is the one now saying that he's tired of running, which is very much in line with how Quinn used to say that in, I think it was either the first or second movie, like he's done running at this point. So it seems to be a theme that is sort of strewn throughout the third movie here, re-engaged. So yeah, he leads the charge back into the base. And some of them help the kids escape. That being Groot and even Drax, obviously, helping with that. Nebula is like working on the ship, and the Nowhere planet is helping the kids, like, because the Nowhere planet is like being docked like right on or right next to this facility. So they're like jumping from the facility to the Nowhere planet, and they don't have a lot of time because it's gonna like eventually like separate. So yeah, and we see that despite all the people trying to head over to that side, that Rocket stays behind because he wants to go back and heads towards the animals that were all kept. He sees all the other various raccoons. And he indeed finally comes to the realization this far in. It took this far to see the actual name Raccoon and go, ah, so all that time, I really just am a raccoon. But seeing the little ones, and then I think that sort of also simultaneously puts him at ease with that realization too. So it's sort of like a super encompassing moment for him. But Theo is not done and goes in on the attack. And Rocket Raccoon takes on the full name of, well, Rocket Raccoon finally. Because all this time he's just been referring to himself as Rocket. So that's pretty cool. Of way of doing that, I suppose. After all that denial. So he's like, oh, we gotta save the animals too. Fuck it. And fuck this guy too. So yeah. They do that. And during this, he eventually gets his way and is getting ready to head back. And Quinn is among one of the last people to jump back. So this is when the planets are already splitting from each other. The planet from the base, I should say, just to make that very clear. And Quinn jumps midway, being of the last of them to do so, and is like freezing up during his transfer from the base to the planet, and is stuck, so you think he's gonna die, but then Warlock comes in to save him because he's had a change of heart throughout the movie, I guess. And I know I didn't explain his bit as well as I should have, but you know, whatever at this point. So yeah, Gamora's getting ready to leave, and Quinn sort of wants to return home to Earth, and Mantis wants to figure out what her whole deal is now. And in a moment that I think genuinely shocks Rocket, but not so much, I suppose, maybe, I don't know, I wasn't as surprised, I suppose, but it was still genuine. Rocket is made captain of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and quite frankly, I do think that despite this movie's cascade of issues, I do think that this is a really well done passing of the torch is to another character that we have seen a lot of, and quite frankly, his crude and rude behavior has sort of deeply subsided from when we saw him in the first movie from where we are now. So he's gone through quite the shift in character arc, I would say, in his 3 movies. So yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, in tow, as they're sort of returned to nowhere, the planet, Rocket sort of plays a little bit of music, and he begins to do a little jig, a little dance, and Groot joins. And they're having some fun, finally, after their little escapades. And Quinn returns to Earth after all this time. And yeah, that is where we end the movie for the most part, except for our after-credits sequences. The second one is more baffling than the first. I thought the first was more compelling a little bit in terms of so the legend of the Guardians of the Galaxy will continue with Rocket Raccoon leading a slightly modified squad of the Guardians of the Galaxy, then including, but not limited to, Cosmo, the dog, is still with them. Warlock has joined the group. Mohawk is with them officially. And one of the girls that they saved, a little bit more grown up, it would appear. So I'm not sure how much gap is between this and everything else in the movie. But, you know, I don't know. It was just because Groot in that sequence is also there, and he's, huge now. Big Groot. And the second one is, Quinn just with his grandpa, and then it's oh, the legend of Star-Lord will return. It's okay. That one was a bit weird, considering that he returned to Earth, and it was yeah, this is neat, I guess. And that was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And boy, oh boy, is this movie in the middle of the road? I would say yes. Quite a few characters had to be sacrificed along the way to get to what I would say is a great backstory and a satisfying ending, sure, but the journey to get there, the current journey to get there, boy, was all of that shit. Most of that, if not all of that, was dog shit. Dog shit material in terms of quality. So yeah, what a mess in terms of that stuff. All the current stuff, mess. All the flashback stuff, neat and really well done. The ending, really nice. But again, the journey to get there, oof. Ooh, boy, oh boy, oh boy. So yeah. It's tough, because it's man, how do you deal with the whole Gamora situation? How do you even begin to fix that? It's Marvel did put you in a shit pile. Undeniable. The whole thing with Thanos. It's you really, those guys on that end really fucked it up. It's how do you even begin to fix that? It's that is an uphill battle. That is undeniable. That is an uphill battle, but I do think a good writer, and an excellent writer more so, could tackle that level, but I don't think that that's quite here. I don't think, due to the amount of gaps in Gamora's story even being reset here, it's even that has this, she doesn't even know her Ravagers. It's what are you doing? It's she should, if that's really where she wanted her to be, she should have known, that's not a Ravager voice. Come on, you gotta stick to something, right? You can't just be a wibbly wobbly if you're gonna take this material on. You gotta like stick the landing. You have to. Otherwise, it's just not great. It comes across as like haphazard, half baked, half put together. Because all the material. Because I think what ended up being the case, because a part of me, because this is complicated to explain, but I'll try my best here. I think what happened here, and I'm guessing, is like their bit with Rocket Raccoon, all of that stuff with Rocket Raccoon, all of that was like the stuff they really wanted to do from the beginning, because Rocket Raccoon ends up being the leader. Like, that follows through from beginning to end, clearly, from flashback to him being captain. Like, that just follows through point A to point finale, right? That's an interesting, full story to tell. Great. But what I feel like happened is like, you know, the writers were like, oh right, all the other Marvel stuff, shit. Gamora, she's we gotta put her back in because she needs to be in this movie because she's, you know, put her in the Ravagers because we know them, right? And it's like, oh, okay, but I mean, if you want to do that, you gotta really make that. You gotta really make that shtick, and it's like, oh, but you already fucked it up when you then later on say she doesn't recognize one of the Ravager voices. Oops. You threw in a little, the biggest wrench in that whole situation that you could have. And then Mantis, what the hell did they do with her all of a sudden with the whole, like, a part of their plan? She's like, flee, and it's like, okay, that seems to track, and then she's like, moments later, kill them all, she says. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you having her suddenly flip like that? It's like, what is happening with the writing right now? Writers help. So yeah, definitely some characters sacrificed for the sake of this movie, and it's very unfortunate that is the case. And I really do feel like that drags down a significant portion of the movie, unfortunately. Like, when I was initially thinking about it, like, just off the cusp of seeing it, I was like, oh, this is like a 7 out of 10, but it's like, the more I actually thought about it, and the more I was like, oh, wait a minute, Gamora's kind of, like, ruined now, or, like, she was, like, predisposed to be ruined, so again, she was, like, the uphill battle for this movie, and they had to work hard to make her work, and they couldn't do it. The writers clearly couldn't do it, and then Mantis, they had no excuse to fumble, but they still did. So that's two characters. Our side characters have like are pretty consistent, but aren't too, you know, bogged in the movie. We have these weird moments where you think a character like Drax is gonna die, where he doesn't. It's like, okay. Stolen joke bits from other movies. It's like, and they repeat it, and like there's definitely other certain vibes of. You also are forgetting other bits from other movies, like Volume 2's tech, to Volumes 3 tech, and just like little bits and bobs there too, on top of all of that. Nebula, she was already sort of reset earlier, so we had to go through that ordeal, like I said, with her, and then her transferring from being an antagonist to a you know, on the good guy side, so... but the whole, like, weird thing that they try to imply with the whole romance thing all of a sudden, like, it's like one bit. It's like, why do we even throw that in the movie? It's like, were you attempting to, like, toy or joke about a love triangle between Quinn and either of the two sisters? It's like, what are you doing? It's like, why would you even throw that in the movie? Why would you even attempt to do that? It comes across as really weird. Drax's material is a little bit kept, unfortunately, like, until the end, where it's like, okay, fine. So yeah, I feel like a good chunk of our characters have been sacrificed. Quinn is, like, actually subsequently, like, quite almost in a meta sense, like me, like, questioning, like, why is Gamora even like this? It's a good question. He literally brings it up in the movie. It's like, yeah, why? To that extent of, like, but she also doesn't know the Ravengers. It's like, you really didn't think that through all the way, did you? Okay, well. Anyway, in terms of a score, I think I'm gonna have to give this movie, have to, go with a 5 out of 10. And I do think that a lot of that 5 comes from the backflash and the end. And everything else is like where the 5 just goes from, okay, this is all good, and whoop, just completely drops almost all the way to, like, you're just, like, almost fumbling every other part of the movie, almost. There are a few bips and bobs here that are like, okay, that was maybe, like, a good one-liner, maybe here and there, bits and bobs of, like, that, but they are far and few between in terms of, like, not also additionally ruining a character, like Mantis or something like of that nature I already mentioned. So that's why I'm going to the 5 out of 10. So this is easily the weakest of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It's fantastic as, like, a Groot. It's fantastic for Rocket's character, because I feel like everything in part of his story, because, again, my suspicion, and I could be wrong, but it definitely still feels like everything I said about that is the case of, like, they had his whole story, like, pinned and, like, solidly scoped out, and then they had to go back and, like, be like, oh, but what about all the other characters, kind of, like, thing. So yeah, Rocket gets, like, the best treatment here. Definitely feels like his movie, in a way, especially towards the end, as he becomes the captain proper. But the road to get there, whew, rough. So, as a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, as the end of a trilogy, rough. As a Rocket Raccoon movie, if it was just his movie, independent of, like, we just got the flashbacks and maybe, like, I don't know, like, just salvage the rest of the movie, I guess is what I'm, like, trying to eat away at here at the end of the review. So yeah, 5 out of 10. I do think that this movie needed quite a bit of a fixer-upper here in terms of the modern stuff, and keeping in tow with what's been going on with the rest of the Marvel universe, and keeping that scope in line with what was happening, and making sure that all the pieces were in place and kept consistent even with the movie itself. And that is my full review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you end up enjoying this full review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second, third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel. And fourth, to my Discord server. Any and all donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.